Hello, everyone. Happy Friday, and welcome to our Conversations on Care, our Facebook talk show, bringing together our healthcare partners, our clients, their families, and our caregivers, all to better understand and cope with our aging parents with chronic care needs. My name is Julie Collada, and I am the proud founder and CEO of Open Arms Solutions. Open Arms is a home care agency serving the Chicagoland area focused on inspired home care solutions for seniors with chronic conditions such as dementia, Parkinson's, and other movement disorders. It is truly our mission to help our families through this journey and to know that their loved ones are living their best life possible. Please remember that if you find these dialogues helpful, please give us a like and a share so that it can be reached by more people who need this information. If you have questions or a topic you'd like to learn more about, we'd love to hear about it, so please write them in the comments below. Well, with me today is an unbelievable force in senior living, a ball of energy, Colleen Koziara, who is the founder and CEO of Beyond Bingo, and author of Taking Flight, a whole life wellness handbook. And our topic today is designing fun, effective activities for seniors that promote client engagement and wellness. Welcome, Colleen. We're so happy you could be with us today.
Good morning, Julie. Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you very much. I am sure that everyone on our team, especially our care coordination team, is tuned in today. They're excited to hear about some of your ideas because you truly are, an expert in and have such passion about how to engage seniors and to allow them to live their best life possible. So thrilled to have you. So let's start with, because we know all about you, but the viewers don't. Many of the viewers don't. So tell us about you and how you arrived at where you are now in founding Beyond Bingo and ultimately writing this great book, Taking Flight. Tell us about it.
Off we go, right? So I have worked in senior healthcare for a lot of years, 30 now. Everything from dietary. I was a nurse's aide before they were certified and worked 11 to 7.
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah. And in between that, I actually worked EMS. I was an EMT paramedic for an ambulance service and then a volunteer fire department as well. But after that, I went into senior care, long-term senior care, everything from nursing centers and skilled nursing up through and including independent living and continuing care retirement communities, assisted living, and then supportive living, which is that special distinction that Illinois so fabulously has. And my last position as someone's employee was as the regional director for programming for, I think we were 17 communities at that point and about 2,000 seniors. And I'm better in person than I am behind a desk in an office.
I've had that opportunity. Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And I really wanted to get out and work with the seniors, and I wanted to help train the staff, and I wanted to implement the programs and facilitate them as opposed to just writing them. I really enjoyed my position as a regional. We did amazing things. We won 2 International Innovators Awards for exceptional programming and created Camp Day that we still do. We're going to be on year 12. But I wanted to do something different, and I wanted to take it farther and make it and expand it so that what we were creating was not just activities, but we were actually creating engagement experiences for people.
Yeah. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that, what the distinction is, but that just makes me smile inside and out because, as we talk about it, Open Arms a lot, we're really very dedicated to allowing our clients to live their best lives possible. And you see it every day, what the potential is. And we also see the other, right? We see the other where
Absolutely.
you have seniors that are at home, and loved ones just frustrated and not sure how to interact with,
Absolutely.
their loved one and how to engage with their loved one. And so more times than not, what happens is you have a senior parked in front of a TV.
Most often.
Most often.
And it is no fault of the daughter, granddaughter, son-in-law, caregiver person who all of a sudden is now a caregiver and may never have been one before.
Right.
They don't even know where to start. And you and I in the industry know how difficult it can be and how complicated to find the right care, the right level of care, the right kind of care, where you're supposed to go. And then once you get into how it's all paid for, that becomes another whole overwhelming thing. And these folks already have jobs and lives, and this is just added into it and becomes really overwhelming. And it isn't that they don't want to do their best, but most often they don't even know where to start.
Yes, completely. Well said. Completely agree. So tell us a little bit more about what kind of organizations you've worked with and what kind of projects at Beyond Bingo you've been involved with, because I know there's a lot of really cool ones.
There are. So I work with everything from small park districts where I do programming for independent seniors who are living at home and come in through the park district. We continued those during lockdown and went on Zoom with many of those. And then independent communities, small individual ones or entire portfolios. I work with owner and manager groups to create signature programming models for their entire portfolio. And when we put those together, depending on the type of portfolio, it can include everything from memory care and end-stage hospice programming, and then vertical and horizontal modifications on everything up to what I like to call independent living plus, where you're talking about someone who's decided to move into a senior living building because they are very excited and very physically active and they don't want to take care of all the stuff at home anymore. So now they want all of the ability to do all the wonderful things without any of the house care or lawn care or maintenance, and then the safety and security of that continuous possibility and forward of them in case their life situation changes. And then trying to remember what other kind of groups. I've actually worked with some schools as well to bring in intergenerational programming, but mainly it is senior communities at all levels of care, and then the park districts.
And so you continue to, at Beyond Bingo, when we do have your Facebook link up here, if there's a community, somebody from a community is watching right now, right?
Yes.
You still are doing these kinds of programmings. You still
Absolutely.
So if they're a community and they're really trying to think about how they can add additional value for their residents in programming.
Absolutely. I come in and facilitate the programming. I come in and train the staff. Programming, I'm a certified chair yoga instructor. In addition to doing all the creative programming, I'm a certified dementia care practitioner trainer and internationally certified in the Montessori approach, which is what I use when we set up all the workspaces. And that is one of those things that ends up being, most people don't know about it, but it ends up making it very simple for the families and caregivers to utilize to help them when they create things, because it creates a habit. And while memories can be lost, habits sometimes maintain. And so that can be very helpful when you're working with someone with Alzheimer's or related dementia. And yeah, we're out at all the communities. There's at least 10 to 15 painting classes or yoga classes going on every week.
Yeah, wonderful. So let's talk a little bit about this book that you authored, Taking Flight, A Whole Life Wellness. So tell us about the book in general. Who is this book designed for?
So when I was putting it together, when I first started, I thought that I was going to be writing it for staff to use as training, but I had the universe gifted me with something. So the woman who was working with me at the publishing house where I was putting it together, and the one who was going to be editing it, just so happened that her 90-some-year-old grandmother had just moved in with her and her mom. And so as she proofread this, she proofread it as a family member who had no idea. And so we ended up with a book that truly is accessible for the family member who's taking care of somebody at home, but also for the senior who's living at home and wants to make sure that they are providing themselves with a well-rounded experience. It can be used by home caregivers that are coming in from agencies. It can be used by home caregivers that are hired privately. It can be used as an educational tool in communities to educate staff, and not just care staff. The way the book is set up, it allows for some programming that only takes 15 minutes, which means that in a community, you could use those 15-minute programs and you could train everybody from the maintenance manager to the executive director on how to do something that might only take 15 minutes. So that as they walked through at lunchtime, they could engage maybe 6 or 7 different seniors just as they were walking through the building, because they'd have this little tool under their belt.
Yeah. Can you give an example of what that might look like, a 15-minute activity that a maintenance team or housekeeping team might engage?
Sure. So the book is divided into sections, and then each section is divided into programming by the time it takes to do it. So there's 15 minutes, 30, 45, an hour, and then a full day. And that time period includes setup and takedown. So I didn't want people to have an hour of setup and then a 15-minute program. So, but what we'll use is the spiritual one, because the spiritual one is fantastic. And anybody can do it. So you're walking down the hall in the morning and you see a resident. Good morning, Mrs. Smith. What are you grateful for today? And if there's 3 residents sitting together and she can't think of anything, so you say, you know what I'm grateful for? I'm grateful it's not raining again. And now everybody probably laughs because it's been raining all day, and somebody will say, but I'm happy about the flowers. And now you've created not only a spiritual interaction because they're expressing gratitude, which is helpful for everyone, but because there might have been a couple of people, or they're at least interacting with you, it's also social engagement, which is automatically emotional engagement. And as soon as you begin doing this, and then you're thinking about it, you're trying to come up with things, now it's intellectual. Everything becomes greater when it's just looked at in that manner.
Yeah, that's a great
example. So this is an easy one somebody can do just as they're walking down the hall. And at night, the same thing. What went fabulous today?
Yeah. And just imagine the power of that, having all different levels of a community being ready.
Exactly.
And our caregivers, being ready with those kinds of things. That's incredibly useful.
One of the owner groups, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
One of the owner groups that I work with actually created a little cheap flip book that was coded so it could be washed off, and gave it to all their staff so they could carry it around in their pocket. So they could go in there and see what they could do fast.
Great idea.
They could go look. Yeah, it was a fabulous idea.
Great idea. You mentioned spirituality, and you mentioned wellness. So there's you and I have talked about that this book is, let me just back up. It's based on the 7 dimensions of wellness. It not only breaks down the activities by time, which is brilliant and so useful, but it also breaks down the activities by these 7 dimensions of wellness. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. And this is one of the places where people who are just beginning to do caregiving, they get real confused. But I'll explain it in a way that, when you and I were talking, we even talked about this. So if you think about it, if you like to garden, so is gardening for you, 30 minutes on Tuesday? Or is gardening, you got the books in January and you looked at all the pictures, and then in February you purchased all the seeds, and then you put them all together and you figured out what you were going to plant. When you start looking at engagement and activities in that manner, you begin to see that each person is multifaceted. And I worked with a woman, Karen Limebeer, and she was absolutely fabulous at setting up the little words, the little letters in a word that say something else. So she came up with CVIPs. So that's the 7 dimensions of wellness. So it's social, emotional, environmental, vocational, intellectual, physical, and spiritual. And that's how we always remembered them. And she was really good at these. And so when you look at a person, they're not just one aspect. There's a physical aspect. There's an intellectual, an emotional, social, which always feeds into emotional. There's spiritual life, environmental. They go outside and they engage with the outside life. Vocational. Those are the things that they're drawn to do, something that feeds their soul, a love, something they used to do, something they really enjoy and have always enjoyed their entire life, or a skill that they've maintained their whole life. And when you look at someone from all these aspects, you end up having the ability to create programming that actually feeds them as a whole person, as opposed to just an activity that they sit in front of, and when it's done, they go away.
Yeah, that's a great explanation of that. And what I think is also really important is that, and we've talked about, we have our Embraced by Open Arms, our memory care program.
Yes.
One of the things that we're very proud of with that program is it's based on, I guess, so many organizations do a really great job at providing training to their team by watching videos.
Correct.
And the state of Illinois requires
absolutely
that if someone is going to provide dementia care, that they need to watch, I believe it's like 6.25 hours of online videos. And it's great content. It's great information about what happens to the brain and how it changes. And
it is.
So it's really great information. It's what is equally important is, in my opinion, is training people on, and that's what we really work at and continue to work at doing better and better. So that's why I'm so excited that Sherry reminded me of your brilliance. And, it's something that we do in our Embrace training lab is really, how do you best engage? What does an engagement look like? And what does engagement look like for individuals that have some cognitive deficit as they change, and they will change.
Correct.
We all change,
yes.
right?
Yes.
You and I change from day to day.
Absolutely.
People with dementia change day to day. So how do you best engage, and how do you get creative and make sure that you have an engagement with someone that really meets them where they're at?
Yeah.
And allows them to really enjoy it and bring joy with it. And I think that what we're talking about is whether we're someone that has our full cognitive ability, or we're someone that are in the later stages of dementia, we're still a whole person.
Absolutely.
The way you just described it, we
absolutely.
We still have all these needs of experiencing the different dimensions of wellness. And how do we modify activities and really do our best to engage with that person to bring out what they need at every stage of where they are in the disease process. So
if I give you an example of one of the groups that I work with, that I paint with, their memory care group, and we usually have 8 to 10 painters, and they are at every level. One of the gentlemen has never painted in his life before and has become a magnificent painter. He is just doing fabulous work. No one would ever look at his work and think that he was living in a memory care community, not for a second. And then we have others that are much farther along in their illness. And part of all the programming, the residents come in to be with me for painting, and as far as they're concerned, they're just going to a painting party. And we have the music on, and for drying the painting, we have to flap the painting, which is range of motion, because now our arms are up in the air. And they pick the songs, not me, which means that I listen to a lot of Frank Sinatra during the course of the week. Although that is changing. I had some Pink Floyd requested and some Janis Joplin a couple of weeks ago, so it's starting to change. And so they request the music. And as we work into these things, the paint that's given can be modified. Maybe somebody can't have all the colors. Maybe they need them one at a time. Maybe there needs to be adaptive grips that go on the brushes. Maybe they need to be seated in an area where they have more space to support their arms because they have tremors. or there's some visual issues, so we modify those things. But by the time we're done playing with paint and music and laughing our butts off, we have done fine and gross motor skill work, we've done sequencing, we've done cross-body movement, we've done range of motion movement. I've probably managed to get in at least 15 minutes of cardio exercise, because even if they didn't go to exercise class, I'm going to make them flap those paintings around. We're going to get into some kind of mischief. And so even if the individuals there might not be at a level where cognitively they can participate in the painting that day or maybe that week, and sometimes that changes dramatically from time to time, they still had the social, the emotional, the physical, they were still in there laughing and hanging around with us and creating something, even if it was something much different than what I was teaching. And one of the things I tell all the artists is you can't do art wrong. I don't keep an example up. I show them what we're painting, and then I show step by step, but everybody creates their version, because the best version you can create is your own, not a copy of mine or somebody else's. Yeah. So it ends up being really lovely, and they create what they need to create that day.
That is lovely. And, one of the things that I think is we all we get so much joy out of is when we hear stories and we see stories of our clients that they're very proud of whatever they've done.
Absolutely.
Right? We had a client that was really into gardening and created this really lovely garden. And his son actually talks about it on our website. What it meant to him, what it meant to his father, and it is incredibly rewarding to just witness that. And I've only had one opportunity, and I don't know if you remember this, but you and I tried to work on building a memory cafe together.
Correct.
And it was at one of the communities, a community, and we were all so excited about the idea. And we had this, so I saw you in action, so a memory cafe. I mean, I think I'd love to talk about that a little bit with you.
Absolutely.
Because, I think it's, and I don't know how many people really know about it, but it's so lovely. A memory cafe, and what we did with Colleen is it was for couples. It was really for one individual that had some cognitive deficit, and their partner. And most of the time, the partner in this particular case was a spouse. One particular individual I know was a son.
And I've worked with a daughter.
And a daughter, right?
Yeah, and daughter and father. Yeah.
And it could be different family. It could be friends. But the basic premise is that a memory cafe, and I'll tell you my premise of it, and then I want to hear your thoughts, is it's a safe place where people can, with a loved one or a friend that has some sort of cognitive deficit, can be together with other people, enjoying activities, sometimes education. Yes. It's a safe place.
It is.
And can you talk about some other examples of where you've done memory cafes?
Absolutely. I maintain memory cafes weekly on Zoom for the better part of the first year we were in lockdown, because we had a big group coming, and then all of a sudden they had no place to go. One of the challenges, as you know, sometimes there are behaviors that are challenging. As people progress through Alzheimer's and related dementia, this can be difficult. And the caregivers being able to come to a memory cafe where they know everybody there is in the same situation, so nobody is going to be shocked, nobody's going to be embarrassed, nobody's going to be bothered by the behaviors. They're not going to have to feel concerned or worried. The staff that's there taking care of it knows exactly what to do. We've got it all handled. And what's really lovely is that if these are set up right and done well, not only does the caregiver leave with some information, like I would put together the whole lesson plan that they would get. And maybe that time it was all about how to modify food for the point in the disease when no one wants to sit and eat anymore. So now you have travel food. what you can do to make food more interesting, those sorts of things. So the caregiver gets that whole handout. But what we did during the session was we dipped fruit and cake in chocolate, and we decorated all kinds of things. Now, they had an absolute blast together, and one of the things that it made possible is the caregiver gets to relax and remember they really love this person. This is a really challenging situation they're in, but they really love them. And they had a wonderful time, and they created these things together, and the information included information about vegetables and, the appropriate food, but we were playing with stuff that everybody would want to eat, and had just an absolutely fabulous time. And they were able to learn something and engage with each other. And when they went home at the end, everybody had a good time. They were all laughing. Usually the person that was being cared for was tired, and it was probably time for a nap, which means the caregiver got some more rest when they got home. And it really creates a day that is such a positive experience that it becomes something they look forward to. And that's important, because caregiving is a really, really tough job.
Oh, it is. It's such a tough job, and it's an incredibly uplifting feeling when you see the person that you're caring for engaging with other people, laughing, smiling, kind of that core of who that person is, who's really been buried by the disease, comes out. That is really, really incredibly a joyful moment. And I know I have I don't know if I've ever told this story before. We all have our different experiences. And I think I've shared with you, and certainly the viewers have heard, that my mom, what brought me into this industry was the experience I had with my mom, who developed Alzheimer's disease and vascular dementia. So it came on pretty quickly. But I remember she had a quick ride, and it was from the time she was diagnosed to the time she passed away was 10 months. At the point where she was in full skilled nursing, more towards the end, she had received a failure to thrive diagnosis.
Yeah.
And she was about to move to hospice. And so this woman, who was an incredibly independent woman, vibrant, just stopped communicating, right? Yeah. Stopped laughing, stopped interacting. Very, very rough, right? And
so hard for the family to watch.
So hard for the family. So hard for me to see.
Yeah.
It was hard. And there was this this moment, a breakthrough that really, really inspired me to work with people with dementia, because I saw what was possible. She, at some point, she wasn't interacting, and I said, "Mom, you haven't eaten for a long time." I remember that, on special occasions, you'd always want to go to Burger King and order a big, a Whopper. And she would want, Mom, you wanted a Whopper with cheese and a shake and fries. And I just I was swinging for the bleachers. I had no idea. No idea. She hadn't been responding in so long, and I was filling time, and she lit up. So I didn't even think she could anymore. And she said, "God, that sounds good." So I was like, "Mom, I'll be right back." I ran to the Burger King that was very close by. I was there. I thank God didn't get in an accident or get stopped by the police. Came back. Kind of a funny story. She was in a kosher facility. It was a Whopper with cheese, which is not kosher.
Yeah, so you snuck that in under your coat.
I snuck it in under my coat, and I didn't know what was going to be, right? You just don't know. And so I really had very small expectations, but I got to the room, I pulled it out, incredible smell, right? Anybody that's had a Whopper and fries, and she just lit up when she smelled it.
Exactly.
And there was about 15 minutes there, no more than that, of heaven between me and my mom, that I will never forget. She ate that Whopper. She smiled. We laughed. It was one of the most. That's the whole point.
That's the whole point.
That's what just got me hooked to try to have other family members experience that, and it's just it's magic. It's amazing.
Yet the person who was a world-class oil painter who won't come to painting class until I bring in one of the rags from my studio and it smells like turpentine and linseed oil, and they literally do this. Are we painting? Because it's smell or the right song or whatever it is that brings this person out, and they engage and they're there, and that's the whole point.
That is just the what's potential and what's the magic. Well, I told you this would go by fast.
We're all done.
It's gone by fast. Can you tell everybody, we got the Facebook, your Facebook up here and Beyond Bingo. If someone wants to order this wonderful resource, Taking Flight, how can they do that?
Amazon or Barnes & Noble online. Taking Flight, a whole life wellness handbook, and I'm the author, and it is available on both.
So I've had a chance to look at it because Colleen was nice enough to send it to me. I'm excited. We'll be sharing it with our team. I urge people to take a look at it, to order it, because it's an incredible resource. And you are an incredible resource to all of us in senior living, and a joy to be around.
Thanks, Julie. It's a pleasure working with you, and thank you very much for having me on today. This has been fun.
Yeah, you're so welcome. All right. Take good care.
You too. Bye-bye.